Maybe it's been bad coaching hires. Maybe it's just been bad coaching. Maybe it's a talent issue. Maybe it's an execution issue. Maybe it's the curse of the white Tonto. Why is it that Florida State has been the most disappointing team in all of college football over the last few years? Why is it that Florida State has done the absolute least with the absolute most? Why is it that in terms of reality versus expectations, Florida State's been the biggest disappointment in all of college football? I don't know. You know what I do know? What they're going to do in 2020. And I'm going to tell you right now. Hey, good morning, it's Uncle Lou here. Yeah, that's right, it's me, Uncle Lou, and I'm live for you on LouTube today. Thanks for watching, I really appreciate it also. And two, in addition to that as well, hey, subscribe to this channel if you're not already. I post college football videos almost every single day of the year, and some of them are even watchable. Shout out to all my Florida State fans. I'm going to give you a preview today for the 2020 college football season. We'll look at the roster a little bit, who left, who's coming back, of course, wholesale coaching changes. Take a look at some recruiting over the last few years to see what type of talent they're working with. Then I'm going to put the schedule up on the screen. We're going to take a look at it, go through it game by game, and I'm going to try to come up with an overall record in 2020 for Florida State and let you know who they're going to beat and which teams it is they're going to lose to. Big shout out to everybody over on the Uncle Lou Patreon page. The order that these videos are coming in are determined over on the Patreon page. This video comes as a suggestion from Rattlehead. Thank you, Rattlehead, for supporting the channel over on the Uncle Lou page. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoy this FSU preview. If you'd like to check out the Patreon page, there's a link in the description down below that'll take you over there. You can get yourself signed up. You get all kinds of perks and rewards for signing up over there, one of which is picking a team for me to preview for 2020. But there's all kinds of stuff over there. Click the link. Check it out. All right, let's get on with today's video. All right, a couple of jokes at the beginning, but I mean, let's just be real. Florida State has been a disappointment, a huge one, over the last few years. I don't know of a team that's better well-positioned that has performed worse than Florida State over the last few years. Missing a bowl game for the first time in like 28 years, a few years back. A coaching change that just didn't work out. It soured even with Jimbo Fisher at the end after his championship run, winning one, losing in another, soured at the end. He left. Willie TAGGART came in, really drove that thing into the ground. Now, some people, mainly this guy, told you from the beginning, the guy never should have been hired. He was in over his head. He didn't know what he was doing. No sense in going over that now. As much of a racist idiot as I was for saying that 2 years ago, according to some Florida State fans, they all agree with me now, and that's all that matters. You bring in Mike Norvell. I think this is a good hire. Is it going to work out at Florida State in the long run? No one knows. There's no such thing as a guarantee when it comes to making a coaching change, but I do like the Mike Norvell hire a lot more than I like the Willie TAGGART hire, and we'll talk more about Mike Norvell here in just a few minutes. Last year was just a total failure. I'll put the schedule up on the screen, last year's schedule and results, so you can look at it. In a lot of these videos, I'll go over last year's schedule. There's just not much point here. Everyone knows the issues with Florida State, really the last 2 years. Very inconsistent and honestly subpar quarterback play. One of the worst offensive lines in all of college football. And even the defense, which was sort of keeping Florida State's head above water 3 or 4 years ago, really tanked the last couple of years. They've just been a really bad team. No sense in going through what they did last year. You already know. Mike Norvell, you bring him in from Memphis. Like I said, I think a good hire. He's 38-15 all time in his 4 years as a head coach. He runs sort of an up-tempo, but not really a spread. It's more of a pro style, an up-tempo pro style type of offense. Scored 40 points per game at Memphis like it was nothing. I expect immediate offensive improvement with Mike Norvell there versus Willie TAGGART. Now, how much is debatable, and we're probably going to have to wait to the season to find that out. Florida State, another team that's going to be hit really hard by no spring practice. I've said this a million times. No spring ball, no offseason workout, no organized practices of any kind really for the last 3 or 4 months is going to affect every team in some type of way. But there's some teams it's going to affect more than others. Teams with coaching changes, it's going to affect more than others. It's hard to install a brand new system and scheme and philosophy in one off season, even in a normal off season. To do it this year is going to be especially difficult. That could slow down Florida State's offensive development, particularly early in the season. Right? I think so. How much talent is on Florida State's team? I mentioned at the top, it's hard to find a more talented team with a worse record the last 2 years than Florida State. In fact, it's impossible. If you look on 24/7 Sports, they do a team talent composite index. Is this thing 100% accurate? Of course not. But they do a pretty good job of going through a team's current roster, which includes the last 4 recruiting classes. They average those things out, and they come up with a total talent ranking for every single team. Florida State was 6th. There ain't a single team, 1 through 5, that comes anywhere close to being the train wreck that Florida State is. So yes, Florida State is the most talented disappointment in all of America. It's not up for debate. Here's their last 4 recruiting classes, because that's what will make up most of this year's roster. 2020, they had the 22nd ranked class in America. That was good for 4th in the SEC. Their worst class within the SEC and overall in this 4-year period. Still not terrible. A top 25 class, 4th in the SEC. Go back to 2019. 18th nationally. That was good for 2nd within the ACC. 2018, 11th nationally. 3rd in the ACC. And you go back to 2017, 6th nationally. 1st in the ACC. So you're seeing a trend here headed in the wrong direction. That's the first thing Mike Norvell is going to have to fix. In 2017, you had a 6th-ranked class. In 2020, it fell all the way to 22. And it dropped every single year from 6 to 11 to 18 to 22. WILLIE TAGGART, breaking news, couldn't coach. Now we know can't recruit either. So that's sort of the bad news. The good news is you never had a class worse than 4th in the ACC. In 2017, you had the best class in the ACC. These are your seniors now, right? You had the 3rd class in the ACC in 18, 2nd in 19. That's where that 6th ranked talent index came from last year, which was the 19th through the 16th recruiting class. They haven't released their rankings for the 2020 talent index yet. It won't be as high as 6th because your recruiting has been trending the wrong direction lately, but it'll be, if it's not top 10, it'll be close. We'll see if the results will bear that out. But the point is, there has not been a more talented team in all of college football that has done worse than Florida State the last couple of years. It's hard to believe how far Florida State has fallen in such a short period of time. Let's look at the offense, see what they need to do there to get it turned around. Our quarterback situation has been shaky at best at Florida State over the last few years. They really haven't had a quarterback they can rely on since 2014, Jameis Winston's last year. It's been sort of a rotating cast of characters there at quarterback, none of which have really worked out. James Blackman is the guy on the roster that returns with the most experience. He's got 23 starts under his belt. And Florida State fans, at least the ones that I've talked to, seem to have mixed feelings about James Blackman. Some think he's terrible, and it doesn't matter what coach or system you put in there or what players you put around him, he's never going to be any good. Others think he's really, really good, and he just needs better pieces and better coaching around him. Which is true? I'm not sure. I do think he'll be better under Norvell than he was under TAGGART, but that also is an opinion. Now, you also have 2 freshman quarterbacks on the roster who could compete for some playing time. There's Chubba Purdy or Tate Rodemaker. Is that his name? I don't know. I don't name these people, so if I say the name wrong, that's really their fault, not mine. And you have a sophomore, Jordan Travis. Purdy's the most highly rated of the quarterbacks, right? He came in this year. Tate Rodemaker, he was highly rated too, not as high as Purdy. He enrolled in January. Normally that would give him a huge leg up, but again, no spring practice here. And I looked into some of this stuff with Blackman. It's going to be hard not to start him, I think. Yes, his interceptions have been absolutely ridiculous, but he ranks among the all-time leaders in Florida State history in passing yards and passing touchdowns. That's no accident. It can't be. So I would be surprised if James Blackman isn't the quarterback that ends up getting to start for Florida State this year. And then I think Mike Norvell's toughest job will be figuring out who's that number 2 that's really going to push him throughout the season for playing time. That will be the bigger question mark, I think. Again, I'm not telling you Blackman is going to start. That's where my money would be right now. And a huge part of that is no spring ball. No spring practice, no spring training, no real offseason program to evaluate these young guys. I would put my money on Blackman right now. Whoever the quarterback is, what does he have to work with on the offensive side of the ball? Well, offensive line, not much. I don't know. Well, here's the deal with Florida State's offensive line. We all know one of the worst in America the last couple of years. They were third worst in sacks last year. I believe they led the nation in sacks given up the year before. They've been absolutely, there's no word you can say that would be harsh enough or critical enough to accurately describe how bad Florida State's offensive line play has been over the last 2 years. Absolutely pitiful and pathetic. Now, you got 2 new offensive tackles this year. Normally, that's bad news. That might be the best news for Florida State. The talent was just not there on the offensive line. Talk about coaching, talk about scheme, talk about whatever you want. The talent was not there on Florida State's offensive line. It was not. So normally in a year that you have to replace both your tackles, that can create some question marks. In my mind, I don't see how they could be worse than what you lost. So this might actually benefit you. Now, along the interior of your offensive line at center and guard position, you've got players that have been playing. Again, normally that's a good thing. I'm not sure that's the case here. The talent there is just not there, and it's nothing that can be fixed in 1 year. Nothing. Florida State is not going to somehow have an amazing offensive line this year. It's just not going to happen. Can it be better than last year? Of course. Of course. It can't be any worse. It's like Oklahoma's defense. They bring in a new defensive coordinator, and these Oklahoma fans are going nuts because they're ranked 60th or whatever it is and everything instead of 120th. Great. 60th is still terrible. Your offensive line is still going to be bad this year, Florida State. It just is. Okay, it just is. Cam Akers couldn't run the ball behind that offensive line. And you ain't got no Cam Akers on your team right now. You don't. He's gone. And we'll talk about that now, I guess, but he's gone. You got a transfer from Texas A&M, this Jashawn Corbin, and you got this other kid, a former 5-star recruit, Kalon Laybourne. One of those 2 guys is going to have to step up. They're probably going to play both of them. Hard to believe either one of them is going to be as good as Cam Akers. And like I mentioned, Cam Akers couldn't run behind this offensive line. So I don't think there's anything that can be done to fix Florida State's offensive line overnight. Wholesale coaching changes, great. You needed that. WILLIE TAGGART was clueless. Jesus Christ himself couldn't fix this offensive line in 1 year. It's going to be bad again. Could it be better? Yes. Is it going to be good? No. It's just not. Wide receiver, probably your best position group on offense. I really like Tamarion Toney. In fact, this video last year, the Florida State preview video last year, I went on and on about Tamarion Toney. I love this kid. This guy's a playmaker. Averaged 20 yards per catch each of the last 2 seasons. So not a one-hit wonder type of deal. He's done this 2 years in a row. And you've got 3 other wide receivers on your team with starting experience. Wide receivers are the strength of Florida State's offense. Again, that's great. Unless that offensive line can protect whoever the quarterback is, doesn't matter how good your wide receivers are. You got to give the quarterback time to throw the ball. That's your offense. I'm not expecting a whole lot. 40 points a game for Mike Norvell at Memphis. Can he get to 28? If Florida State can score 28 points a game this year, I think that would be a minor miracle. We'll see. Now let's look at the defense. 2019, last year, you decided to switch from the 4-3 to the 3-4. An utter failure. People said there's no way Florida State's defense can be as bad in 2019 as it was in 2018. Ended up they were right. It was worse. Your defense somehow got worse in 2019. Unbelievable. 90th. If I would have told you 4 years ago that in 2019 Florida State would be 90th in total defense and 119th in pass defense, you'd have called me dumber than I actually am. How did this happen? In 2013, that was not that long ago. That was not that long ago. All 22 starters on that team got NFL contracts. Well, what is this? How did this happen? This is unacceptable. And I'm not even a Florida State fan. I mean, I don't hate them either, though, but how mad must you be if you are a Florida State fan? This is what has happened in Tallahassee. Mrs. Lou graduated from there. I've got no reason to hate Florida State other than the fact that they're abysmal. 90th, let's move on. New defensive coordinator comes in. Good luck to you, sir. You're going to need it is all I can tell you. First thing he does is say, well, we better switch back to the 4-3. Good decision. I don't blame you. The 3-4 was an abject failure. Defensive line, the defensive front in general, Florida State's defense, it definitely is the best position group on Florida State's defense. And it's either defensive line or wide receiver, best position group on the team. But what's the guy's name? Marvin Wilson. How y'all taught this guy into coming back is beyond me. Why he wants to subject himself to another season of Florida State football, he would have been at worst a second-round pick in the NFL. This guy's an absolute animal. In the middle on the defensive line, a preseason All-American. He's back for his senior year. How did you pull that off? That's huge, right? That is huge for Florida State's defense. And you got two other guys. Is it Corey Durden and Robert Cooper, I think, are the other two, the defensive tackles. I'm not worried about the interior Florida State's defensive line. I'm not. I think those three guys are not just good, but borderline great. Your run defense up the middle should be pretty good. The problem is on the edges. Your defensive ends are absolutely terrible. You get one of them back, great. He had 3 sacks last year. Whippity-doo. Janarius Robinson. Again, the scheme change last year, I'm sure had something to do with that. So maybe going back to the 4-3 this year, maybe those numbers increase a little bit. Defensive back, 119th in pass defense last year. You got to do a lot better than that. Asante Samuel Jr. returns at one of the cornerback spots, and you got a safety I like. This Hansa Nazaruldeen. Again, I don't name these people, okay? So if I'm saying the name wrong, which I probably am, email them about it, not me. I didn't name them. It's not my job. I didn't name them. It's just my job to pronounce their names wrong, and I'm actually doing a pretty good job of that. Asante Samuel Jr., as bad as Florida State's pass defense was last year, he had a pretty good year. Was he second? Did I write it? No, 14th. That's still good. 14th in the nation in passes defended. So he's got some talent and ability. And again, this safety, what name I can't pronounce, I like him too. He's good too. Linebackers, you guys linebackers are pitiful. Wholesale changes needed there. You got some players coming back. You got some young guys with some talent. Again, look at the recruiting classes. There is some talent on this roster. It hasn't translated to the field. We need to see that this year. Your linebackers I mean, it's almost not even worth talking about Florida State's linebackers the last 2 years. They've been that bad. They cannot be that bad again, and I don't think they will. You got to get better play out of the linebackers. I think you probably will. Overall, as much as I like Mike Norvell, the offensive line situation just scares me to death about Florida State. I'm getting ready to do the schedule here in a minute and tell you the wins and losses. The offensive line situation, look at a team like Miami, struggle, and all the talent there, but no offensive line. And then look at the results. Florida is just now rebuilding their offensive line. They let it sort of slip, and they had a couple of bad seasons as a result. A bad offensive line leads to a bad season almost every single time. There's almost just no way around it. It almost doesn't even matter how much talent is around. If the offensive line, like in Florida State's case, is one of the worst 2 or 3 in America, that just limits your chances right out of the gate. And I'm very concerned still about the offensive line. Over on the defensive side, I have more confidence, I think, in the defense taking more steps forward in 2020 than I do the offense, even though Mike Norvell is an offensive guy. I think he needs more than 1 year to work to get that offense back to where it needs to be when I just look at the pieces. I'm not sold on any quarterback on their roster. As far as the young kids go, I've never seen them play. Hard to buy in, no matter how highly rated a guy is. Hard to buy in until you see him do something at the quarterback position. Blackman I have seen, and I'm not all that impressed. I get it that the offensive line is terrible, and it's not 100% fair to judge somebody when the offensive line has been that bad. But Jesus Christ, the guy, he looks like he hasn't eaten since he was 3 years old. This guy, he can't weigh more than 170 pounds soaking wet or something. This guy, he looks like like the world's only human stick figure. This James Blackman. And with a bad offensive line, how does he survive? I don't know. All right, here we go. I'm going to throw the schedule up on the screen. We'll go through it. All right, I got the schedule pulled up over here. We're going to go through it game by game. You guys know how I do this by now. I'm going to give you a winner and a loser for every game on this schedule. I'm going to do my best to explain to you why I'm picking them to win certain games and why I'm picking them to lose certain games. Keep in mind, I have a general philosophy about college football that I end up applying to almost every one of these predictions that I do, okay? Go back and look at almost any team from almost any year ever. Every single team, every single year. Almost every single, 99%. of the time, is going to beat at least one team most people don't think they will beat, and they're going to lose to at least one team that most people didn't think they were going to lose to. So keep that in mind. That's sort of the general philosophy I go. I do try to find upsets. I try to find upset wins for teams, and I try to find upset losses for teams because they just happen in college football. Keep that in mind. All right, you start things off with a neutral site game in Atlanta against West Virginia. West Virginia is a year ahead of you, at least in terms of coaching. They're in year 2 under a new coaching staff. This will be, of course, Mike Norvell's first time out as head coach against Florida State. I think this is going to be a really good game. I think this is a coin flip game. I think anybody could win this game. If Florida State's quarterback situation ends up better than what I think it'll be, if Mike Norvell has some sort of immediate impact on that offense, if the offensive line plays better, if they can find a running game, they got to replace Cam Akers, and again, they got to keep the quarterback on his feet, I could see where Florida State can win this game. If West Virginia comes out and is taking a big step forward in year 2 of this coaching staff, which we see a lot of times, you see a lot of teams take a big step forward in year 2 of a new coaching staff, I think they've got the pieces to where they could win this game. It really is a coin flip in my mind, and no outcome is going to surprise me here. Right now, I got to pick West Virginia. I don't know enough about how much of an impact Norvell is going to have in year 1 at FSU. And the things I do know about FSU are not good. Offensive line, defensive issues at linebacker, replacing Cam Akers, questions at quarterback. Too many question marks for me to pick Florida State to beat a Power 5 team that I think they're honestly about even with right now. I can't pick Florida State in that situation right now without anything to go on. I haven't seen spring ball. I haven't seen a game played by Florida State. If I'm going to be wrong on this, I have to be wrong in that Florida State surprises me in a positive way. I have you starting off the season 0-1. But again, this is a coin flip game. If you argue with me in the comment section about this game, you're wasting your time because I'm just going to agree with you. Yes, Florida State could win this game, but they could lose it. I got to pick a winner and a loser. I'm taking West Virginia week 1. Week 2, you host Samford, your first home game, win. You're 1-1. I don't care. First year, 100th year for Mike Norvell. Amazing offensive line, no offensive line. If Florida State ever falls to the point where they're losing to something called Samford, you just need to go back to being an all-girls clown college like you used to be. Type on that too. If you don't know about that, then I don't know, did you just become a Florida State fan yesterday? I don't know, but you used to be an all-girls college. That is true. And you can still major in the circus at Florida State. Yes, that's right. You can go to Florida State and major in the circus. Go down there, learn the trapeze and shit. It's amazing. Week 3, you got to go on the road at Boise State. Loss. They beat you in your place last year. I get it. Willie Taggart's fault. Blame him. He's gone. Great. You're not winning at Boise State. You're not winning on the Smurf turf. Mike Norvell, year 1. Again, offensive line, quarterback. Boise State's not going to have those issues, I can assure you. You're not winning. You're just not. You're losing on the road at Boise State on the Smurf turf. You're 1-2. That takes you into your bye week. Come out of that first ACC game on the road at NC State. Win. I like Florida State having their bye week early in the season. I'm normally against that in general. I like to see a bye week more towards the middle of the season, right? Players that are injured or banged up halfway through the year gives them a chance to rest. You've played half your games. That's a good time to make any adjustments or whatever. In the case of Florida State, quarterback issues, offensive line, all that stuff's going to be getting worked out in real time during these first 3 weeks. Mike Norvell, first year on the job. I like Florida State having this bye week early in the season. It's going to benefit you too because you're going to come out of that, you're going to go on the road, and you're going to get a win at NC State. Congratulations. Then you come back home and you play Clemson. Then you got another home game against Wake Forest. I think you beat Wake Forest too. This is not a 50-50 game by any means, but I don't think this is a gimme. Listen, there really ain't no gimmies. I know you're Florida State, but you're not the Florida State of 2013 and 2014. You're currently the Florida State of 2018 and 2019, but I still think you beat Wake Forest. And you go on the road and play Louisville. Louisville's headed this direction. Hide and watch, okay? They made an amazing hire with their coaching staff last offseason, and they are heading in the right direction. I still think Florida State and Miami are the 2 teams most well-positioned within the ACC right now to eventually make a run at Clemson, whether that's next year to year, it won't be this year, whether it's next year to year, whatever. Louisville ain't that far behind, in my opinion. Now, that's a little bit more of going out on a ledge there. I get that. I just have a positive feeling about Louisville. Maybe I may end up being wrong. I've been wrong once or twice in my life before. It's possible, although not likely, that I could be wrong again. I really like what Louisville's doing. You got to play them there. And here's the thing you have to remember, especially whether you're a Florida State fan or not. We know Florida State's no good. We get that. These other teams still look at Florida State as a big game, okay? Something like this, if it ends up being a night game and, Louisville puts on those black jerseys and the crowd decides to black it out, I mean, the atmosphere that could get created there. The point is, average fans, other teams, to them, it's still Florida State. It's still a big name. It's still the Florida, it's Bobby Bowden. It's Jameis Winston, Deion Sanders, Derek Brooks. That's Florida State. So, yeah, you're in the gutter, but when you play these teams, they still look at you like you're the giant. And I think you lose on the road at Louisville. I think they beat you. Come back home, play Pitt. I just haven't been impressed with Pitt the last couple of years. Coaching situation is up in the air there to me. I think you get a win against Pitt. And it's time for the rivalry game against Miami, and you got to play them there. They've beat you a couple of years in a row. I know that as a Florida State fan, you have to hate that. With these big rivalry games, people, I tell people all the time, there was ever a year where Georgia had to go 1-11. I hope that one win is against the team I hate the most. That's why I say it all the time. Miami and Florida State probably feel the same way. I don't see you winning. Again, it's a Louisville situation. They're in year 2, so they're a year ahead of where you're at in terms of establishing a new identity and all those kinds of things. I just don't see you winning. Not because it's at Miami. The Miami ain't got no home field advantage. I mean, just forget it. The stadium holds like 25,000 people. It's insane. I mean, it isn't the place where they play Wimbledon. The place where they have the U.S. Open tennis thing is bigger than that weird-looking Hard Rock Stadium that Miami has. It's not even on their campus. What is that about? No one knows. So it's got nothing to do with the fact that it's there. Year 2 under Manny Diaz. Do I think Miami's going to be a great team this year? No, but I think they're 1 year ahead of you right now. That's something you could fix through recruiting and better coaching, which you might have, but we just don't know that right now. Manny Diaz fell on his face last year. Will it happen again? I don't know, but I think you lose this one on the road at Miami. Come back home, play Boston College, win. Another team, these ACC, 8-9 teams in the ACC. You put them in a hat, shake them around. Pick a team out. Doesn't matter what team you pick out. They're all the same. About 8 or 9 of these teams in the ACC are all the same. They just wear different helmets. Boston College is one of those teams. I think you get the win. Home field advantage will help you there. Here's what I will say about Boston College. Don't have the hangover from the Miami game. Don't let the Miami game cost you twice. We do see that in college football sometimes. Team loses a game. They're demoralized, whatever. They go out the next week. Lay an egg. Don't do that. I don't think Boston College is very good, but they're not so bad to where if you decide not to show up, you can't lose. Don't do that. I've got you winning against Boston College. Let's keep in mind, Mike Norvell's first year at Florida State, not his first year as a head coach, and that does make a difference, okay? I get it that he came from a Group of 5 school and doesn't compare to the Power 5, but the point is you learn certain things as a head coach along the way that translate no matter what level of football you coach at, right? Don't underestimate your opponents. He knows that. I don't expect that to happen. Hopefully he won't let it happen. You get to win at Boston College. On the road at Syracuse. This is another one I sort of went back and forth on, but I gave you a win here. And to be honest with you, this one's 50-50 too in my mind. I like their coach now. They disappointed last year after a 10-win season the year before. Not saying they're getting back to 10 wins this year, but I do think they'll be a little bit better than what they were last year. Good enough to beat Florida State at home? Yeah. I've got you pulling off what I think would be... Syracuse may be favored in this game when this game rolls around. Not by much, but they may be. I'm giving you a win here. That could be an upset win for you. I'm giving you a win on the road against the Fruit. And then you close things out with your other rival, Florida. And, listen... I'm a Georgia fan. Don't forget to type 1980 in the comment section a bunch of times too. Georgia winning a national title in 1980 sure has helped Florida State a lot in the last couple of years. Point is, I hate Florida. I can't stand Florida. But they're a top 10 preseason team and are probably going to finish at worst in the top 15. They're probably going to finish top 10, at worst top 15. You're not beating them. You get them at home, it doesn't matter. By that point in the season, disappointment and reality will have set in once again for Florida State and their fans. Florida just way too talented and way too well coached at this point. Dan Mullen's third year now. There's just not a chance Florida loses that game. It doesn't matter. Yet you get them at home. Slight advantage maybe in the first half. By halftime, I don't think the crowd will care. This game could be played on the moon. I don't think it would affect the outcome. I've got you losing that one. That puts you at 6-6. Not what you want to hear, I know. Be sure, again, 1980, type it down there. It could be 1880. You're still not any good today. I'm sorry. I don't know why that's the first thing people feel like they need to type. Yeah, you won a national title in 2013. Georgia hasn't won one since 1980. Georgia's way better than you right now. I mean, none of that matters, okay? It just doesn't. But please type it, though. But anyway, 6-6 for Florida State in 2020. A disappointment? Not really, I don't think. I honestly think Florida State's got some talent issues. They're about a 6-7 win team right now, in my opinion. Can it be fixed quickly? Yes. When you're a head coach of a Power 5 team in the state of Florida, anything can be fixed quickly with recruiting. There are recruits, highly ranked 4- and 5-star recruits everywhere down there. This can be fixed. The recruiting's got to improve. You can't keep recruiting like, last year was 22. That was kind of an odd thing. Willie Taggart got fired. Mike Norvell comes in. So you're getting half of Willie Taggart's class plus whatever Mike Norvell can piece together there at the very end. Not blaming Norvell at all for that 22nd ranked class. But you got to do better. You got to get better. Clemson right now, if that's the standard, which it is, you are nowhere close. Nowhere close. So anyway, that's it for Florida State. That's my honest prediction. Throw the jokes in there or whatever. But so if that makes you mad, I'm sorry. Hashtag 1980 and have a good morning.